Back in the 60s, some unscrupulous folks would mix DMSO with LSD and prank police officers by putting it on the handles of their cop cars. So when they touched it, they would start tripping balls from the LSD from a topical thing. Because normally LSD, you take it like sublingually, you put it in your mouth. But with DMSO, it can go through the skin and have the similar effects.
That's a bonus what you didn't know about DMSO.
Yeah, so definitely do not do that. Do not mix DMSO with LSD and prank people with it. You're listening to Natural AF, the podcast exposing suppressed truths about health, reality, and human potential. I'm your host, Isaac. I'm the founder of Natural Art Form, and I'm joined by my Australian co-host and partner, Alexa, a Site K facilitator and human design coach. If you're ready to challenge the status quo and explore how the world really works while staying grounded in your deepest purpose, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining us. Let's get Natural AF. Welcome back to Natural AF, folks. This is another fine day, another beautiful sunshiny day in the northern rivers of Australia.
It's actually unseasonably hot right now.
Yeah, we're supposed to be going into fall, autumn, and it feels like summer.
Yeah, we've had over 30 degree Celsius days. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's been unseasonably warm, but we're not complaining. Yeah, we're not complaining. I'm having a great hair day, so I feel amazing today.
So, after last week's episode, we got a wind of inspiration.
Yeah.
And this next week, we're booked in with Kelly Wilkins to do her jigsaw method training, which I'm excited about.
So at the time of recording, we're booked in to start next week. But by the time this comes out, we'll be finishing up the training. So we'll definitely check back in with you guys in the coming weeks as to how we find it and how I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes. I'm fully into whatever Kelly Wilkins and all them are doing. Like, totally. I love the systems. I love the heart and the intention that they put into it. So if you haven't seen that episode, go back, check that out and plug in. All right. So for this episode, this Natural AF podcast is sponsored by and named after Natural Art Form. So the business that I started in the States came about from an injury that led to me exploring the use of something called dimethyl sulfoxide, which, if you can tell by the show title, is the topic of today's episode.
And just to clarify, dimethyl sulfoxide is what DMSO is short for, because a lot of people, it's probably our most commonly asked question is, what is DMSO?
Yeah.
And first and foremost, it's just a abbreviation of dimethyl sulfoxide, which is an organic chemical compound found in nature.
So I might as well just do the basic overview of it, because then that'll lead into why we use it in our products and what benefits it might have for you. So
before we dive in, actually, I just want to say what actually has inspired this episode, because we talk about our products a lot, but we haven't really dived deep into more of the educational content around, the ingredients that we use and things like that. And Isaac has just recently reformulated a new product called Alleviate Pro, which he did try out. Yeah, it's amazing. And everyone loves the label. It's like really, it's kind of like our top shelf product.
Yeah.
And
premium.
Yeah. And so we first sort of did a soft launch with it at the Living Free Festival last year. And I remember because Cal Washington was one of the first people to buy it for his dad. We did a short run of it, but, there were tweaks that you wanted to make. And then, it was just a super busy time of the year at the end of the year. And then beginning of this year, we're getting married and there was a lot going on. But now that Isaac's reformulated Alleviate Pro, I've got to say, because I wasn't a huge fan of the last one, got to be honest. For me, it just smelled a little bit medicine-y. And then using it, I just felt like it wasn't that much better than Alleviate. I'd prefer to use Alleviate. This is actually like amazing. And everyone that's using it so far is blown away. And it's also been inspired by our new sponsored athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've wanted to make something that was geared specifically towards the hard use and wear and tear on the joints. When I first made Alleviate, it was just for pain relief for a shoulder injury, and it worked extremely well. But as I've gotten into the science around why it works and peeled back some of the layers, I found opportunities to improve things and even discovered some things that I didn't know, things that I was actually wrong on when I was talking to people at the markets. So I'm using an Alleviate oil extracts from comfrey, arnica, calendula, St. John's wort. And there's a component of comfrey called allantoin that I was telling people was in it. So I found out since doing some more research that it doesn't actually have allantoin in the comfrey oil, because allantoin is exclusively water soluble. It might have some solubility in alcohol, but mostly water soluble. So Alleviate Pro is the first batch where I've done my own water and glycerin extract of comfrey, of the root, and had to develop a whole process for that.
And just to clarify what the differentiation is, that in an oil extract, you're not getting the allantoin because it's only water soluble. So it's actually not in comfrey oil extracts.
Yeah.
Whereas now that you're doing your own process, you are actually getting that micronutrient.
And we're using the root for that because the root has the highest concentration of the allantoin, anywhere from 3 to 7 times the amount that's in the leaf. So there you go. The older the root, the better it is. One of our local resources informed me that 5 years is like the pinnacle best root you can get for comfrey root. So file that away. That's good information. All right. So we had an athlete reach out to us after he bought our product, Alleviate, in Mullumbimby. He's from there originally. And we have an article up on our website about the legendary Ezra Dingo. He goes by that name, and he's a ultra marathon runner, a backyard ultra specifically, in Sydney. And I have an article up on the website. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And he's just an amazing guy. He's really chill, and he's just, for some reason, just born different. He's tough as nails.
Yeah, he's not the type of guy. And I think because you've mentioned him on the podcast before, and I think I even said that he's like a real cool, like surfy looking guy. Like you would not pick him to be an epic ultra runner. Like not only is he an ultra runner, but like he's like winning a lot of these really, really intense epic races.
Yeah, he's been the last man standing at his last 3 backyard ultras.
Wow.
And just for those that don't know, like a backyard ultra is long. Like an ultra marathon is anything over a marathon.
Like hundreds of kilometers long. Like
exactly.
It's insane.
Multi-days.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going until there's only one left. And then he just keeps running until he decides to stop.
Wow.
And Ezra, for the last 3 runs he's done, or last 3 competitions he's done in Sydney, he's been the last man standing, running over 340 kilometers in each race. Wow. And they do it in loops. So a backyard ultra, for those of you that know like David Goggins, he talks about this a lot. He did basically a backyard ultra style where he ended up peeing blood and everything at the end of it. Like it's really insane if you don't train up to it. And Ezra does it. He doesn't even get blisters on his feet. I was talking to us in the article. He's just kind of built for it. But they do 6.71, I believe, kilometer loops. It's a specific amount so that if you do a 24-hour, and you have to do a loop every hour. So in 24 hours, that's 100 miles. And then you just keep going. Day 2. Day 3, like, right now, I think his personal best is 54 loops, which is like 362 kilometers plus.
Wow. That's insane. It's actually very hard for me to fathom because I can't even run a few kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's mind blowing because I just posted this recently on Instagram, but my long distance stuff from the military was under a ruck, like a backpack that we would just walk, sometimes would run with. And it's so boring for me. Like I remember the last time I did a long road march was in Wyoming, and it's flat, dusty plains. And I was so bored just like walking for it was only 4 miles, like, maybe about the same as one loop from that ultra marathon. And you have to go someplace different in your head to like just keep going. And imagine doing that 1 loop, 2 loops, and then like 50 something loops, same path. Not all of them are the same type of run. Sometimes you go backwards. Sometimes you have different terrain, but like you just get in the zone and you just relax and just basically kind of submit to the process and still give it your all and do that every loop. So
yeah, it's insane. And another
Hat goes
sponsored
off to you.
athlete, new sponsored athlete, our newest, is a very different field of sport. Very different.
Sport, also a legend in his own right. Young, up-and-coming jiu-jitsu competitive athlete, Lars. And they're from up north in the sunny coast.
And he's a teenager. How old is he now?
So he's 15 years old.
Yeah, he's
got a good record.
Him.
At 15, his last competition down in Sydney, he was on the podium for both of the events he was in, both gi, which is like the uniform that jiu-jitsu practitioners or whatever you call them wear, and then non-gi. So just like, so it's a little bit more difficult non-gi because there's not as much stuff to grab onto when you're wrestling.
I didn't know that. Didn't know they did that.
So he placed, he was silver, placed second in the gi, and then bronze in the non-gi. So that's cool. I like,
yeah, good on him.
Proud of you, Lars. You did a good job. Did a good thing. And so actually this week I'm sending out, because we just launched this past weekend, the Alleviate Pro, sending it out to those guys, putting it to use. Lars actually had a bit of an ankle issue after that last competition, like a light sprain maybe from an ankle lock. And he gave me a nice shout out online about how quickly he bounced back from getting his ankle tweaked in a competition to doing a full training week the next week. So
amazing.
I think he might have taken a couple days off, but then by Friday he was good. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, that's the inspiration behind, I mean, it's always kind of been your inspiration behind Alleviate, but especially Alleviate Pro is targeted to, you know, high performance athletes, but also it's really great again for a lot of our customers who have chronic issues, especially in their more elderly years. This is definitely going to be, it just hits like 100 times harder than Alleviate, which is already doing such great things for so many people.
Yeah. So there's a lot of potential there. And, you know, obviously we don't treat or cure any conditions with this. This is not a FDA registered or approved product. And we don't have to be. It's a topical thing. And it's just got healthy botanicals in it to, we'll just say it blesses your body in ways that that's something that's more synthetic and not earth, as closely based to the earth would do.
Yeah, it basically just provides your body with the nutrients it needs to do its own thing, which the body is designed to heal itself. And it's just supporting the body to do that in times of injury and stress.
Some interesting combinations and some processes that these plants and these different extracts facilitate in the body.
Yeah. We wanted to do this episode today because we talk about DMSO all the time when we're at the markets, and, you know, a lot of people still don't know what DMSO is, or even if they do know what DMSO is and even if they use it, there's things that, you know, we know about it, which when I say we, I mean Isaac, because I've learned everything I know about DMSO from Isaac. But there's things that we know about it that people are like, oh, I never knew that about DMSO. So we thought we'd, you know, give a basic overview. So for people that don't know what it is, you know, we'll cover all the basics. But then we're actually going to go through some of like the kind of the top 5 things we find that is very little known about DMSO and a lot of people don't know. And it just goes to show what an amazing natural ingredient it is, not only to use in our products, but just for personal use. Like it's one of those things that you can literally use it for almost everything. I actually haven't heard of anything you can't use it on in the body.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's very common. So we'll get into all the details. But first of all, so DMSO is dimethyl sulfoxide, and it's a sulfur compound. It's common, actually, just before doing this episode, I looked into all the things that have DMSO in it, and it's like a lot of fruits and vegetables have it. It's really, there's a lot of it in garlic, and I believe that's probably why garlic gets that smell. It's the sulfur in it, the sulfur compound DMSO. And there's an old remedy that I heard about first from Barbara O'Neill for cold and flu and for coughs, even for little kids. But if you have a cough or a cold and flu, she says to dice up garlic and put it in your sock.
You can just put whole cloves. My brother, or even, I think still to this day, my brother does. That's like one of those old wives' remedies. Like my brother's been doing it forever. And yeah, you can just put whole cloves in your socks when you're sick and it draws out the whatever pathogens. I don't know exactly how it works, but
but and some people say you can actually taste it in your mouth after, like pretty quickly after putting it on your feet. Yeah. Actually, I remember my sister, I might have to correct that statement. I believe my sister, Lisa, shout out to you, Lisa, in Kansas. I think she was actually the first person to tell me about that, putting garlic on your feet and being able to taste it in your mouth right away.
Yeah.
And back then, the understanding of it, or the explanation of it was, what she said was because the feet are the most absorbable surface on your body.
That's true.
Potentially.
On the outside, yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
it's very porous. Like the skin's very porous. So anything you put on your feet, they say you'll absorb.
Yeah, I guess you do have a lot more like big pores in there and stuff.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But then the DMSO hitting your breath, having that garlic breath or that taste in your mouth, that makes sense that it's the DMSO. Anyways, bell peppers have it, onion has it, even like grass, most trees, probably all trees. It's found in larger concentrations in the lignin in the tree. So if you chop down a tree, it's not in the bark or like right next to it, but it's in the soft, moist bit in the middle of the tree, the soft core part. And essentially in the tree, it's what helps break down the minerals in the soil and transports them to the top of the tree. So it has this big, like powerful drawing effect. And it's also protective for that tree. And we'll get into why, like through different temperatures and things like that.
And so the way that it acts in the trees, this is what we explain to our customers all the time. Again, I only know this because Isaac taught me first, and now I teach our customers, is that the way that it functions in the trees by taking all the nutrients from the soil and delivering it all the way to the top of the trees, it basically does the same thing within the body, right? So anything that you mix it with, it will basically absorb, like it kind of packages it all up. That's how I explain it. That's how I say it in my mind. It packages it all up, all that good stuff, and it delivers it really deeply into the cells. Whereas, and that's why we love it for topical use, because most topical products, and you found this, I mean, you developed Alleviate from a shoulder injury and you tried so many topical things. And we hear this from so many of our customers, is that most topical stuff doesn't really work that well, especially when you're talking about pain, inflammation, joints, ligaments, tendons, those things that are much deeper. Topical things just don't work because, yes, your skin absorbs everything, but it generally absorbs it sort of to the going into the blood, and that's kind of it.
Right.
Whereas with DMSO, it can go as deep as bone cells, tendons, ligaments, joints. So
yeah, and I won't get into too much into the science around why, but so the way it works, it actually signals the cells, actually temporarily makes the cell wall hyperpermeable. And so that leads us to the precaution. If the cell's hyperpermeable, pretty much anything you rub on the skin will go into the cell, not just through the skin, but actually into the skin cells, into the ligaments, or like the tissue below it potentially. So it's really important to be careful about what you put on your skin or what you mix with the DMSO. Yeah. Make sure there's nothing synthetic. Make sure there's no like artificial fragrances, no artificial colorings, things like that, or any kind of harmful preservatives and ingredients that you don't want in your body.
Yeah, we wouldn't recommend a mechanic go and use DMSO after a hard day's work.
Yeah, wash
with grease
first.
And stuff all over their hands. Yeah,
exactly. And anything you put on your, I tell people this all the time at the markets, anything you put on your skin absorbs into your bloodstream, potentially. So even like motor oil, grease, your body's pretty resilient. Like I've, changed the oil in Alexa's car recently and like got some oil on my skin, and I'm pretty sure that's in my body somewhere and I have to deal with that. But DMSO just makes it go in deeper and faster.
And much quicker.
So just be aware of that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, it's pretty much good for everything. Like, you learnt through Amanda Vollmer, anyone that has Amanda Vollmer's books, she has recipes for everything. Like you can use it as eye drops, ear drops, topically, you can ingest it. Like obviously you have to know the ratios and dilutions and things like that. You don't want to just be using it all willy-nilly because it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those like one-stop shop for like so many different things.
Yeah, and that's why when I first heard about DMSO was from Amanda Vollmer's interview on AlphaCast with Dr. Bear Landau and Mike Winter. They did a good job explaining it, and then I bought her book and used a couple of different recipes, but that book is back in the States. I haven't looked or gone through that in a few years. But the one thing that I would say that I differentiate from Amanda Vollmer is the density or the amount of DMSO. For instance, for the sunburn repair, in the book, she has 40% DMSO, 60% aloe vera gel. And that's like a simple sunburn remedy you can make at home. And when I first did it, I was like, 40%, that's a lot. I only had a little bottle. And I was like, I'm just going to cut it in half because a few drops sometimes is enough to like help your body absorb whatever's mixed with it. So I did 20%. And the dramatic effects were I had a sunburn and I had blisters on my hands, and I was putting it on for the sunburn because I was doing fence posts and outdoors and all that. The next day, the blisters had completely absorbed back into my hand, disappeared, and the sunburn was tan within 12 hours, basically.
Wow.
Since then, I've reduced the amount of DMSO even further down to 10% and still get the same effects.
Yeah. And probably because you're like in Regenerate, that product, it's only 10% DMSO, but it's got so much other good stuff in it. Right. I imagine that it probably makes sense to have a higher ratio of DMSO if you're only mixing it with one other ingredient. Right. But because you've got the comfrey in there and, the lavender and calendula and all these other really good things that are going to nourish and, soothe the skin, I think you probably don't need as much DMSO. Yeah.
Yeah. If you get like a synergy going, and that's one of the other guiding principles, thinking along the lines of Ayurveda and their medicine, so to speak, but they use different herbs to amplify the effects of other herbs. Like if you take something internally for like, let's say a nootropic, something to like give you energy and focus mentally, if you combine it with black pepper extract or piperine, that'll amplify the absorption of something for the brain. So similarly across the skin, You can add DMSO to arnica to comfrey calendula. But if you combine all of that together, the arnica and the calendula will amplify the effects of each other and the comfrey, because they all do a little bit of the same process, but they're all slightly different. So it's like attacking the problem by surrounding it versus just trying to pierce through one angle of it.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I look at crafting these things and approaching tricky situations, like triggering your body into healing itself naturally. Sometimes you need nutrition. Sometimes you also need something like raw materials that the body needs to build back whatever was damaged. And nutrition functions with that, as well as some of the signals, because you can eat comfrey leaves and trigger processes in the body. And then I'm also a little bit impatient, but also thinking like a medic. You want it fast. So you add DMSO because it just, boom, just gets it in there.
Yeah.
Perfect storm. All right.
Yeah. Well, that's the overview. So if you don't know anything about DMSO, that's it in a nutshell. But now we're going to get into...
Wait. Before we switch to that. So we covered transdermal. That's topical use, like putting it on your skin. We've talked about eye drops, ear drops, things like that. It's still kind of topical. And there are practitioners out there that use it intravenously. Which I don't think you really need to do unless you really are just focusing on the blood vessels specifically, because when you put it on your skin, it gets into your bloodstream anyways. But yeah, they do it intravenously, and they do it pretty successfully for a few different like interstitial cystitis and other things.
Wow.
So.
All right. Well, let's move on to the lesser known facts about DMSO, because even when we meet people at the markets that do know what DMSO is, there's definitely things that we've mentioned that they're like, oh, really? I didn't know that about DMSO. So, and yeah, I think these are probably the most interesting things about DMSO. First and foremost is how it was discovered, because I found this really fascinating.
Right. So it was discovered in 1866 by a man named Alexander Zaitsev in Russia. And he was a bit of a chemist and biochemist, and I would say probably even a bit of an alchemist if he's looking at DMSO. Yeah, so more than likely, so the biggest source of it was when they pressed paper or wood pulp and turned it into paper. And in the wood pulp is something called lignin. It's when you're pressing out and making the paper, all this liquid comes out, and in that liquid is DMSO. And sometimes there's heat in the process, but that's likely what gave people the original, like, there's something here, because when it touches your skin, you can taste it right away. So there were other scientists that did that, where they were messing around with the liquid from the lignin. They touched it, had this effect. I think one of them even had some like pain in his hand and realized like later on the pain had completely gone away.
So interesting. I just find that so interesting, because I've never once thought about how paper's processed. And I never really thought either that, like, we look at trees and like the way that they're milled, for wood and like planks of wood, like you don't see it as like a wet, like I would never imagine like liquid to be coming out of wood. And so, yeah, I just find it super interesting.
And it's different than the sap. Like the sap is more sticky and tarry.
Yeah.
This is deeper in. It's more of a wet thing. So, yeah. And the most paper is made from pine trees. Pine trees tend to grow the fastest and have the most abundance. So it's a renewable resource. So you can probably bet if you're getting DMSO from that process, it's probably from pine.
Yeah,
which I love.
Which is where ours comes from, right?
Yeah, we actually source ours from a company in Slovenia that's pretty switched on, and they do a bunch of different natural remedies, and you can tell they know what they're doing because of what types of remedies that they're selling and making.
Yeah. So. And also, I just want to, on this point, because we've actually had people stop us at the markets and say, oh, like, how come you don't get it from Australia, like, locally made? The only sources we've found in Australia come in plastic bottles. And as we've just explained, with DMSO being a super absorber, you really don't want it stored in plastic because it'll also absorb toxins.
Yeah.
So
I actually did order one time from someone in Australia that had it in a plastic bottle. And they had wrapped it, they'd saran wrapped it and put it in a plastic bag and everything. And when I got it, the DMSO had eaten through like the seal in the lid and leaked out, and it dissolved the saran wrap.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like, I put gloves on before I touched it, which actually isn't a good idea because the gloves can be dissolved as well. But as soon as I touched it and I saw the stickiness, I was like, I just took that stuff off and threw it away.
Wow.
You don't want to.
Perfect example of, not storing it in plastic. Definitely not a good idea.
Yeah, you don't really want to, again, you don't need to handle it with gloves. there are probably chemical gloves, but like you don't need that. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Just
the
get
only
clean
ingredient
stuff.
we source that's outside of Australia, but it is the best quality that
Well,
we've
there's a
found.
couple. The magnesium chloride hexahydrate. We get a specific form from it's a Tibetan lake. So, but it's just there's not like it's not a source of like pure magnesium flakes from Australia. There's not. I don't think there is just a magnesium lake. It has all this other stuff in it.
I just
Anyways,
assumed that was from here
sidebar.
too. Yeah. All right, number 2.
All right. So, one of the things that most people don't know about DMSO is its relation to something that is more common, MSM, methyl sodium methane or something like that. I don't know.
Is that what it stands for? I'll look it up.
Monosodium methylene.
I know
or-
MSM, but I never know what it stands for.
I'm butchering it.
Yeah.
So DMSO, when it goes through the kidneys, it gets through an enzyme process. Part of it gets turned into MSM.
Okay, so MSM stands for methyl sulfonylmethane,
That's
a
the
natural
one.
compound that contains sulfur and is found in small amounts in certain foods. It is often used as a dietary supplement for its potential anti-inflammatory properties and benefits for joint health. Half of that's come from Wikipedia, so don't trust everything you read on Wikipedia.
Right. Yeah, and looking into that, so DMSO, there's a chemical equation for it, like everything, and it's really only one oxygen atom, supposedly different than MSM. So it goes into your body adds an oxygen to it, and it creates MSM. As it breaks apart the DMSO, there's actually some of it gets breathed out through your breath through something called DMS, dimethyl sulfide, I think, and then that's the garlic breath. So you off-gas some of it gets turned into MSM. The MSM is actually found in the body even days after you've applied the DMSO.
Wow.
So the MSM will actually hang around and do its thing. And these are both sulfur compounds in the body, and the MSM has been used, primarily you see it in like arthritic joint supplements, like MSM and glucosamine chondroitin with MSM. These are compounds that you take in the body to help with inflammation, to help with cartilage health and things like that. Some like European like weightlifters for some reason got onto the MSM early on because it helps with the joint pain from lifting heavy weights and growing the muscles really quickly. So yeah, so I like the MSM. I like the way that it helps with the next point. So the next point is DMSO. You could describe it as something that protects the cardiovascular system, or I like to just say it helps strengthen the blood vessels, even the small micro vessels, like the small veins or the small arteries,
Capillaries,
arterioles,
as small as
Yep.
capillaries, yeah.
even as small as capillaries or capillaries.
Capillaries,
I
as
like
you
to
say them.
it. And part of that's because the sodium from the MSM or the DMSO forms part of the matrix of the cell structure that makes up the tissue of the blood vessels. And so what they've found in several studies is either through intravenous application, IV liquid dilution of DMSO, over a period of time, it even prevented damage from an aneurysm.
Wow.
It didn't shrink the expanded blood vessel, but it kept it from bursting essentially. And so it has that sort of neuroprotective effect when it comes to keeping the blood vessels healthy, even the small ones in areas that really matter, but they're very small. So
Yeah, and this, because we kind of put this in the little known facts because you've just read up on a study on this like within the last couple of years, right? But was the study actually published recently or?
not recently, but it's been out. I mean, some of these studies come back from the 70s.
Right.
So there was a lot of research going on in the 60s and 70s, or no, let's say the 60s. And then around 66, 67, the FDA
It's
actually
like they
blacked
just,
out.
I was going to say, it's like they just all got buried for some
No, they
reason.
literally banned its study,
You're
the
kidding.
FDA in the US.
Wow.
And back in that time frame, I think, especially back then, the FDA ran more as like a cartel.
It
Like a
still
drug
kind of
cartel.
does. It still does.
Because there's some other people that have had like just shady criminal stuff thrown at them because the FDA wanted to shut them down because somebody else that had a big pharmaceutical launch of a drug wanted their competitors taken off the market.
Right.
Which is potentially why. So the DMSO, because it's a natural thing, you can't patent it.
Yeah.
In the States or anywhere else, typically you can't patent things that are just natural compounds.
That's universal. Yeah, you can't patent anything in nature that comes from nature.
Yeah. And then in the 60s, it's quickly becoming apparent that you could basically take DMSO and take a fraction of any pharmaceutical drug, combine it with DMSO, and get the same or better results than the full strength drug. And I'm talking a fraction, like less than 10%. So it potentially would have, like, if it became mainstream enough, if enough doctors and people were asking for it and knew about it, they would be asking for that, because that would also diminish or lower, what's it called? Symptoms, or what do they call it?
Side effects?
Side effects. I just
Yeah.
had a brain for it. But the side effects would be potentially less because you're using less of the actual drug, which we all know now, or some of us know now, has all these like toxic properties to it, because it's just...
And then they can't prescribe you another 10 medications for all the side effects. So that really thwarts their plan, doesn't it?
Or if you just use just DMSO, it would take the place of multiple different medications that you were taking.
Well, I mean, look at just the stuff we've covered today. Like, you can see why they didn't want it studied. They wanted it very suppressed. Like, even here in Australia, it's not, you can use it. We thought for a while that we couldn't even use it in topical products, because the way that the TGA lists it is at face value, the way you read what it says, it's like, oh, I can't use this. But they just set all these very specific parameters around it so that you can use it. But I imagine most people that just look up the TGA website, look up DMSO at face value, go, oh, I can't use this in topical products and sell them. So it's very, very convoluted.
You can't use it in topical therapeutic products. So we have to be very careful on how we say things, Yeah. So, but anyways, going back to protecting the cardiovascular system.
Any more on that point?
Yeah. The one thing that I want to say about that, the effects on the cardiovascular system, something that people don't know, not only does it help absorption and get through the skin barrier and the cell membrane, it actually increases microcirculation. So not just through creating healthier blood vessels, but actually stimulates vasodilation. So you get a bit of a expansion in the blood vessels, more oxygen and nutrients can come to an area, which is why I believe it's very helpful for just giving your body the conditions. Like, you're altering the terrain in favor of healing, So if people are familiar with terrain medicine versus a germ model, the terrain matters quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you can use DMSO as the way it signals the body to alter that to, put your body into a state that's heals faster naturally.
Yeah, well, and just on that, like with the effect on the blood vessels and the cardiovascular system, it makes sense why athletes that are using this, not just around training, but when they're racing before and after, like using it on their body before and after, it makes a lot more sense why it's not only helping them to recover, but also perform better.
Yeah.
Because if you're increasing the uptake of oxygen in the blood, like at the blood vessel level, like that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And then you combine that with something like magnesium. So you're priming the serum in your blood to actually buffer lactic acid before you start building it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty smart.
I think you're a genius, babe. I think you might be a genius. Anyway, so number 4.
So this goes back to some of those studies in the 70s. Number 4, DMSO has been shown to correct cell malfunction.
So this I literally just learned in preparing for this episode, and this is pretty wild.
Yeah, that's cool. So back in the 70s, I think it was in 1970, there's a virologist, Dr. Charlotte Friend, was studying leukemia and leukemia cells. And I actually know a little bit about this form because I was reading about, back before I learned more about viruses and whether or not they exist and how they actually look at them and study them. But there's something in murine leukemia cells. So this lady was studying mice leukemia. And leukemia, just to summarize it, in your blood, in your vessels, your blood cells normally have a specific shape. They kind of look like a Werther's Originals candy, if you know what that is. But they're blood colored.
They do look like that.
Yeah, so that's a healthy blood cell. A leukemia cell is bigger. The nucleus, which is where sort of like your data center for the cell is, supposedly. It's usually just a tiny little thing in there that has the DNA in it. But in a leukemia cell, that nucleus is like almost the size of the cell itself. It's like this big black dark spot.
So if you're watching this, you can actually see, because I've actually never seen the difference between those
so you
two
can kind of look
cells.
at it, if you're seeing it on the screen, the weird, funky looking ugly cell is kind of like a malfunctioning version of a red cell in leukemia patients. And it doesn't have hemoglobin. It doesn't carry oxygen. So someone that has too many of these in their blood will be very fatigued and probably even like have like a white pallor to them because they don't have hemoglobin, which is the redness that's in the blood cell as well. It's red when it's oxygenated. So this lady was taking just the leukemia cells in a petri dish and applying a very thin dilution of DMSO to it, like 1 or 2% or something like that, to the cells, and actually witnessed them and recorded them going from leukemia cells to actual healthy red cell with the proper size nucleus and hemoglobin. So the leukemia cell that wasn't carrying oxygen converted to a healthy red cell that did carry oxygen. And they call that cell differentiation, is when a cell, it doesn't have a specific function. It's just a glob cell that's kind of a cancer cell. It's just a cell that's usually kind of big, and it doesn't have its clock isn't working, so it doesn't know when to die or when to naturally pass away and clear out so a fresh cell can come in. That's kind of what leukemia cells do as well. They kind of build up in your system because they aren't dying and being taken out of your system. A healthy cell, through cell differentiation, becomes a red cell, it becomes a skin cell, it becomes an eyeball cell, whatever the tissue is, and then it has a natural timeline, a natural life cycle, so that it can be replaced with healthy new cells at a normal specific rate. And DMSO in this case showed that it could actually switch the cell and like almost like it's triggering something epigenetically to it, and basically like smacking the top of a computer to reset it or something. Or, you know, like we used to do that with the video game consoles when they got frozen, we'd smack it and it would just be like, boom, oh, okay, working.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, everyone did that at some point with old devices in the 80s and 90s. That's so funny. But that is so wild because it just makes me think too, like she was just studying leukemia cells. Like, what other function does that have just for any kind of cell mutation?
Yeah.
Like,
well, they have other studies since then because they basically named the leukemia cells after her. They call them friend cells, actually.
Because that's her name.
But later on, they did study this with tumors as well. Yeah. And it had a similar effect where it would actually, not all of them all at once, but some of the cells, they would stop growing and expanding. That's like one of the first things you want to do with the tumor is like just stop it from spreading. And so DMSO has been shown in some cases to do that through some pretty interesting studies. Yeah,
that's so fascinating. And it makes sense too why you would want to ingest DMSO or why maybe they're using it intravenously.
Yeah, you could potentially inject it right into a tumor.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
All right, what's number 5? Last but certainly not least, because this is also super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's using cryogenics, and cryogenics is like when you freeze tissue. Now, obviously, if you've frozen anything in your freezer, like let's say you put a glass bottle in the freezer and you fill it full of water and you come back later, it's shattered. Alexa's done that a couple times. She forgets her water bottles in the freezer.
Yeah, in summer. Yeah, and because the water expands.
Yeah, the water expands and it breaks the jar.
Yeah, but DMSO doesn't do that, right? And
it does that in a cell. So your cells all have water in them. The cell membrane is its container. And if you freeze it, the cell will actually rupture. That's why it's kind of like lower quality food if you put food that's frozen, like vegetables and whatnot in the freezer. You still have some nutrition for them. They're okay, but the cells are actually burst. That's why they get mushy when you thaw them out.
Yeah. So do you want to explain too, because it just makes a lot more sense. Because again, like how it works in nature is how we can use it, how it works on the body, because we come from nature as well.
Yeah.
And basically does that for the trees that freeze in winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a tree in Canada, it goes to -40 Fahrenheit or -40 Celsius, and it's frozen solid, like for all intents and purposes, nothing's really flowing, even moving up and down the trunk at all. It's just stationary. And then in spring, it thaws out and there's no damage to any of the internal cells, None of the cell walls are broken. And the same thing would happen if you just froze DMSO. In fact, sort of side tangent to this, when I order bottles of it and it comes in the winter, because it gets down to maybe like 60 Fahrenheit here, whatever that is, 15 Celsius. And that's roughly, it's about...
It gets cold. It gets probably in winter like to below 10 degrees overnight.
Okay.
Yeah. 10 degrees Celsius.
So at that temperature, it's not freezing for water, but it's freezing for DMSO. And I'll get these glass bottles full of DMSO, completely frozen, and there's no risk to the glass shattering because the DMSO will freeze without expanding. And because it transfers across the cell membrane, so if you soak something in DMSO or even a solution of it and freeze it, it'll freeze solid without rupturing the cell, without breaking the membrane. So they actually use it when they freeze sperm cells, when they freeze eggs and tissues, any kind of cryogenics where they need to preserve the tissue health, thaw it out. And it's basically goes from being completely frozen solid to alive again.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say about the trees, just to kind of bring that full circle. Like when the trees thaw out and then it's springtime, they bloom again. Like and that's why it's completely protects the cells to the point that after it's thawed out, it's just like it's nothing ever happened and it goes back to normal, which is so incredible.
Yeah. So to me, that's also why it might be higher in concentration in some trees than others. And I would say the trees that survive the cold the best would have the most DMSO in them.
For sure.
Which would be pine trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So
that's what we got for you today. You can see why it's been so suppressed, because it is one of those things that and we've talked about this before, I think, where a lot of the things that, they were regular household items that people used all the time, like turpentine's another one of those things that was used, had so many uses.
Also from the pine tree.
There you go, for health and all these things that people were using 50, 100 years ago that they don't want people to know about now, because since the Industrial Revolution and the, medical industrial complex was created, all of it is based on something's wrong with you. We're going to give you something synthetic to help you, which they don't cure anything. And it just you get side effects and things like that. And then they prescribe you more drugs for the side effects, for the ongoing, because you're never actually healing. And then it just keeps you sick and it just makes them more money.
Yeah.
So anything that comes from nature, I mean, by way of that, maybe not everything, but most things, unless they're super rare, they cost less. They're more accessible. And then they actually support your body to heal, because like I just said, we come from nature.
Yeah.
And anything that comes from nature is going to be more compatible with us.
Exactly.
So you can totally see why DMSO has been so suppressed by the medical industrial complex.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got, there's a balance. I like having a little bit of that scientific chemistry type knowledge stuff. But when you make that your whole world view, you start looking at everything as the broken down version of it. Vitamin C is just this one little thing. And if we extract just that, then that's the thing that does all the stuff. But you don't look at the holistic picture of it.
It's very reductionist.
Yeah.
Always reduces everything to that. And that's what we see in medicine and how people are treated. It's you've got a heart problem, go to the cardiologist. You've got a brain problem, go to the neurologist. And they're only ever looking at one area of the body, and that's not how we function. We function as a whole.
Yeah, and I've seen this firsthand, going back to how I came up with Alleviate, or leg day back in the day, I used to call it. My shoulder injury, I had a partial shoulder tear. It was a partial rotator cuff tear. We did an x-ray on it. Everything kind of looked at it. It was not the worst, so they weren't going to recommend surgery, but I have friends, a friend of mine has had both his shoulders reconstructed. He's had little surgeries there.
Wow.
Because of a actual full-on disconnect tear doing rugby. And mine was at the stage where they prescribe ibuprofen or Mobic. In the States, those are the two biggest ones. Mobic is a little pill. It's super tiny, but a really strong NSAID, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. And as I'm talking about my product and I'm researching different things, I looked into how NSAID drugs work, what actually gives them, what do they actually do? They lower inflammation, but they do it by shrinking the blood vessels around the nerve. So when you get inflamed, especially if you can feel it when it's hot, when you get like your blood vessels are expanding, that's what makes the area hot. So blood vessels are expanding because they're trying to get oxygen and nutrients and all the repair factors your body puts out to heal it. So it gets hot, expands, and it hurts because there's a lot of pressure in that small area.
Sorry, I got distracted. There's goannas coming down the tree outside.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're coming out for the warmth. So it's kind of genius from a business standpoint, but it's like an evil genius. It's like, and it's not super bad. It's more like a, yeah, anyways, it's like.
It's just one way of doing things.
Well, think about it. You have an injury, you have all these different injuries, and inflammation is the thing that you tell people is the problem. And you give them a drug that reduces inflammation, and that's like the thing that everyone's trained in the medical profession as a trauma medic, even high-level medics, special forces medics and docs and everything. They learn about anti-inflammatory drugs. But if you understand the shrinking of the blood vessels around a nerve, that takes away the oxygen and nutrients your body needs to heal naturally. So from a business standpoint, that means the patient has to take the drugs longer because it's going to take longer to heal if they want relief from the pain. So they put me on 800 milligrams. They put me on 6 of these horse pills that I would take per day. I started getting white spots on my fingernails. I started getting mouth ulcers, and who knows what it was doing to my gut, because it's really bad for your intestinal lining and the mucous membranes and all that. And the pain didn't really go away. It diminished a little bit, but I still didn't have this range of motion. It was like very, very, very stabbing pain. And it just went on for months and months and months, wouldn't heal. And eventually, I think I just quit taking the ibuprofen and just let the thing kind of repair naturally. But it was always a weak spot. And then years later, I re-injured that same spot. And I remembered it felt exactly the same. But instead, using the DMSO and the magnesium and some oil extracts, the first application, it was like 7 a.m, I was able to go and do my handyman work, and without the stabbing pain when I was doing overhead scraping. And that lasted until maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So I credit that to the DMSO because it helped with the inflammation, but it also helped the ingredients absorb into the tissues a lot more fully and stay around longer. So it was like, with the ibuprofen, you'd take one like 3 times a day and it still wouldn't handle the pain. This was like once in the morning and I was good until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So it was quite an improvement over the pharmaceutical stuff.
Yeah. It's incredible stuff. And we were just going to do a quick little bit on, things you shouldn't mix DMSO with and maybe some things that you should mix DMSO with that maybe, people haven't tried that would be interesting to see. But on that, like my first thought on what I would never want to mix DMSO is full strength pharmaceutical drugs, which is interesting what you said with the research they've done that, when they found that when they were mixing it with lower doses of the pharmaceutical medication, they didn't need as much. But like full dose, prescription drugs as we know them, I would dangerous. Never, ever want to mix anything like that with DMSO. Yeah.
In fact,
scary.
That reminds me of somebody at the market, one of these old hippies was telling me like, oh yeah, we knew about that back in the 60s. They used, some unscrupulous folks would mix DMSO with LSD and prank police officers by putting it on the handles of their cop cars. So when they touched it, they would start tripping balls from the LSD from a topical thing. Because normally LSD, I guess you take it like sublingually or whatever, you put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
But with DMSO, it can go through the skin and have the similar effects.
That's so funny. That's a bonus what you didn't know about DMSO.
Yeah, that's a bonus one. So definitely do not do that. Do not mix DMSO with LSD and prank people with it.
Is there anything else you wouldn't mix it with?
I wouldn't mix it with like putting it on your face and then putting on makeup if your makeup is
definitely not
chemical or any ingredients that you don't want deeper absorbed, especially around your eyes,
Yeah.
So be aware of that if you're using the lotion or anything like DMSO gels and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, be mindful of what you put on afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and then, with things that you can mix it with. I mean, we've had customers buy, like just get the straight DMSO and combine it with other natural products that they have just to try. And so as long as we just say as long as you not that we're like advising them as such, they can do whatever they want, but just from what we know of DMSO, as long as the ingredient list is short, it's all natural products, you understand what every ingredient is, and then it's totally safe. As long as, it's like if it comes from nature, you got a pretty safe bet that it's going to be fine. Obviously, there are caveats to that. There are some things that can be quite, like from nature, that can be quite toxic in small doses. But generally speaking, if you've got a natural product that you just want to enhance, and then that's the other thing, if it's a product that already does some good for you and you just want to enhance the qualities, even just 1 drop of DMSO in like a jar would enhance it. And then obviously you could play around with how much you add. But I'd actually be curious. You've been actually wanting to sort of formulate something for cellulite for a while because, again, because of all the functions of DMSO and how it works.
That's one of the functions I didn't mention is it detoxifying. It's very detoxifying. It's actually a free radical scavenger. So when you have a damaged cell, it breaks apart and it has little sharp fragments of the cell. And those fragments stick to other cells and damage them, and then creates this cascade effect. I call it the free radical cascade.
Yeah,
that's
and
one form of...
Most people have probably heard of free radicals as when you increase free radicals in the body, like they're very much linked,
oxidative stress.
Yeah, and they're very much linked, like the whole free radical thing, to like increases in cancer, people getting cancer and stuff, which that's just one school of thought around it. And it's just a correlation.
Like sunburn. So sun by itself is not bad for you. Sun, I don't believe, causes cancer. But if you have a lot of sunburn and you have a lot of these cells that are damaged and they cause inflammation because they're basically, some of them are being turned into free radicals, you want to get those out of the system so that they don't damage more cells. And so DMSO will actually bond with those fragments and get them out of your system, whether it's through the urine or sometimes if there's a lot of them in a local area, it'll actually push them through the skin. So sometimes there can be these detox effects from DMSO that can be quite dramatic. Even like if it's in your lungs, some people will start coughing up a bunch of phlegm. So just be aware of that if you're using a lot of it.
Yeah, it's definitely detoxifying. But coming back to, because you were asking the other day, we were talking about something to do with cellulite and you were talking about birch oil, which I actually had a cellulite oil that had, like, birch oil was the main component in it years ago. And now I kind of wish I still had it because I'd love to add DMSO to that.
Interesting.
And see, because I used it for a little bit, it didn't really do anything. And, again, so many topical products, you try them and like it doesn't really do much. So that would be one thing that I kind of want to try it with, but I think I'm just going to leave it up to you to actually make something. So I'm like, do I go and buy that product again? Because I'm just annoyed because I remember when I threw it out, it was still kind of half full and it had expired and it had been there for so long. And I was like, I'm never going to use this. And I just threw it out. But I'd be curious to like try, like with things that are like that I haven't found like I got much of a result from topically. I'd want to put some DMSO in that and try and see if you do actually see a visible result when, maybe you didn't before.
Yeah, that's the direction I like to go in.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing that I would not combine DMSO with or apply it, and this is from something that I've actually done and was like, oh, idiot. I got bit by these jumping ants that are kind of like a wasp, but they're an ant that's like bigger than a quarter sometimes. And, or even like a 50-cent piece here in Australia. Like
no, they're not that big.
I've seen some that big.
No, they're not.
Not on our property, but
they're pretty big. Like they've got a big-ish body, but then like, really big legs.
They bite and it feels like you've been shot with an arrow or
Very
something.
Stingy, yeah.
Really painful, and it pulses, like the pain grabs you and then lets go and then it
So that's for most people. And then poor Isaac, I think because he's not from this land, that he swells up. Like it's always like 100 times worse for him.
Yeah. We use the bracken fern. Bracken fern is really useful for insect bites, for like the really bad stings and things like that.
And particularly jumping red ants. It's an old indigenous remedy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had this idea. I was like, since DMSO is also it's like a solvent, you get to dissolve stuff in it really well. I made a DMSO extract of bracken fern, and I made it quite strong. It's just mostly DMSO, a little bit of aloe vera, and then bracken fern extract. And I put some of that on the ant bite, thinking it would be like a supercharged relief from the ant bite. And it turned like purple. It started blistering right in the area where I was bit. What I think it was doing now was like, because the DMSO helps detoxify the blistering, was it literally taking that venom and pushing it to the surface and getting it out of my body. but I still had the swelling. I still had the pain and the itching and all that stuff. So anything with like a lot of venom, definitely would never use DMSO on a snake bite or anything like that.
Definitely not.
Because it would potentially help the venom absorb into the cells, into the tissues before then extracting or detoxifying it.
Yeah. So don't try that at home.
Yeah. Be aware of that. What else would you not ever combine DMSO with? Besides like the obvious, like motor oil or whatever.
Nah, I can't think. Yeah, just like, apart from the obvious things, there's not much else. But yeah, definitely definitely not pharmaceutical drugs. Yeah, the LSD thing's funny too, because probably not illicit drugs either. Especially if you're already sensitive to certain things, like that would not be that does not sound like a fun time. But no, I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're interested in learning more about it, I definitely recommend picking up Amanda Vollmer's book. Learn about it before you start working with it. If you're fairly competent and you're into healthy stuff, natural stuff, and you're going to do just natural, clean formulas with it, then, I support that. If you're just going to like try to drink a bottle of it, do not do that. You need to dilute it.
Yeah. That's
the highest concentration I would work with at all would be like 70% DMSO, but you don't need much, like a few drops. Even in a glass of water, you can put a couple drops in water and drink it safely without risk of damaging anything.
And I think, Amanda Vollmer's book is great because it's got recipes in it and dilution amounts and ratios and things like that. It's just, I think it's really good to have something like that on hand because in this day and age of AI lies. If it doesn't know something, it'll just lie to you, and it's definitely not reliable in that way. And when you're dealing with something that is as powerful as DMSO, I wouldn't want to be relying on like stuff that AI is spitting out, which is where most people get their information now. So and even just things that are out there on the internet, especially knowing that it has been so suppressed, you got to be discerning of what you find on the internet in terms of what information is actually accurate out there. But of course, if you want to purchase our products that contain DMSO, we've done a pretty good job of explaining now why we use DMSO, why it's so amazing. So we use it in Alleviate, now Alleviate Pro, and Regenerate, which is our advanced skin repair lotion. And honestly, guys, Isaac's listened to and has been part of the bear community. And one thing that Owen Benjamin always talks about is if you like something and you don't want it to go, wait, I'm going to butcher it. What does he say?
Support what you love or it goes away.
Exactly. And so, we are entirely self-sponsored. And so we run our business. We do this podcast. We have affiliates, but they do not sponsor us. We just have affiliate links that we make a little bit of money off. And again, we don't do that to make money. We want those things to be more accessible to people, which is homeopathy and Primal Key, which is primal animal supplements, the highest quality supplements. And so, we really do this because we love it. We want to share the information that we share with our listeners, with our audience, with our customers. And really the way that you can support us, apart from listening and subscribing and sharing the episodes, is by purchasing our products. And of course, we want you to purchase those products to support your health. This isn't just a money-making endeavor for us. It is something that we do because we love, we find a lot of purpose in it, and because it is genuinely helping people, and that is what really drives us and keeps us going.
Yeah. And if you're in Australia, for now, this is the only country you can buy Alleviate Pro in. And if you want it available in the States, please support us as we'll use every dollar we make to help buy the materials needed to make that in the US because I'm doing my own extracts with these. So Alleviate Pro, I believe it's the first product of its kind that has the water-based extract from comfrey. I don't even think Barbara O'Neill has talked about the fact that allantoin is water-soluble, not oil-soluble. So in fact, we actually have a little secret insight on that, but they make comfrey extract at the retreat that Barbara owns in Australia. But I know little Birdie told me that they use a really good coconut oil, and that's an amazing thing to use as an extract, but they don't know that the allantoin is in the water extract. So I might have to, do an anonymous tip for them so they can improve their stuff. But the allantoin is amazing. I kind of call it, like, jokingly, this isn't like exactly what it is. It's like a natural peptide. Right now, peptides are all the rage in some of these physical health circles and sports physiology and bodybuilding, because I don't know, just something about bodybuilders, they just can't stop like trying to find things to inject into their bodies. They're like, steroids are illegal. Peptides, let me inject that.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to inject anything when you use DMSO because it's like way more efficient than any hypodermic needle, and it's safer and like not weird. And you take that with the allotone. The allotone actually is what's in breast milk that signals babies to grow faster. Breastfed babies are always, just a step ahead of bottle-fed babies in development and growth, or several steps, maybe a giant leap ahead, depending on, yeah.
And what else is in Alleviate Pro that's not in Alleviate?
So there's triple the amount of DMSO. This particular batch, each batch is going to be a little bit different. We're going to try different things. This batch has L-glutamine in it, which is an amino acid that helps with the collagen matrix, so helping building the structures that form tissues like blood vessels, cartilage, ligaments, things like that. This one has a little bit of nettle oil in it, and the comfrey has comfrey oil extract, the same. It's the leaf and the root, and then also the same volume. It's like 4,000 milligrams or more of the water glycerin extract. It's like this dark brownish color, and then concentrated rosemary CO2 extract for a natural preservative. And you can kind of see it's a little bit of a darker color than the previous,
more of a green.
The previous Alleviate, and that is due to the comfrey root water extract.
And it smells so good. Like everyone loves the smell of Alleviate. And the first time as I formulated Alleviate Pro, I actually really didn't like the smell. It smelled a little bit medicine-y. I think it might have been from the L-glutamine, like there was just the amount of it or something.
I was using black pepper oil in there as well, essential oil, which isn't really necessary. Right. It's supposed to be like an help absorb and actually stimulate circulation. Yeah. But you don't need that.
This one smells divine. Absolutely love it. And of course, for our listeners, so first of all, if you're in the US, we are still on clearance. So we're clearing out all of the current stock of Alleviate and the True Sense of Refresh. So if you just head to the website, naturalartform.com, it'll already be discounted. So I don't know how much is left, but I feel like we've got less than 50 units combined of everything. Right. So there's not a lot left. But yeah, we want to clear that stock out so that we can start making the product with the house-made oil extracts. And here in Australia, Alleviate Pro, we do have an introductory offer. So full price is $90. At the moment, it's $80. But for our listeners, you always get 10% off all orders. So you will actually get 10% off the introductory price, which is almost $20 off full price at the moment. So head to naturalartform.com, use the code NATURALAF10 at checkout, and you can use that code as many times as you want, as long as you're here and you're a listener. We love you. We want to give back to you in any way that we can. And like I said, that helps support us in keeping this podcast on the air and helping us to support our business and keeping it going.
Excellent. Well said. That's all the time we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for liking and sharing this podcast, and we'll catch you next week on Natural AF.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast, where we explore holistic healing modalities, mindsets, and methods that reconnect us to nature and our natural state of being.
If something resonated, share this episode and see the show notes for our guest links, as well as all of our discount codes for our aligned affiliates and Natural Art Form, where we handcraft a range of organic, natural remedies to help support your body's natural healing abilities and help support the show.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates.
We're not here to conform, we're here to remember what's real. So step into your power, be curious, and be natural AF.